Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's evening session presented by All India Management Association's Young Leader Council YLC. And today's session is on the science of mind management. And I think it's one topic which is close to everybody's heart right now because we are going through a very unprecedented situation. And in fact, as I was also talking to Swamiji day before that, at least for many young people, because Swamiji Young Leader Council represents generally our audience is composed of a lot of young audience members. And for many of us, it's actually the first major upheaval or tragedy of many sorts which we have experienced in our life. Some of us also experienced it in the last decade during recession, but it's very new for many of us, and that has led to a lot of emotional upheavals. A lot of people are struggling to understand and just make sense of it. And I think also the uncertainty around when things, because everybody is trying to seek the normalcy bias, right? That it will eventually get back to some stable state which we have in our mind. And that seems to be a moving goalpost, which has resulted in a lot of negative connotation. A lot of people are thinking that things will never be the same. And then those kind of issues have led to people sometimes even taking extreme steps. In fact, a few weeks earlier, one of our YLC family members, committed suicide, and it was a shock to many of us. And similar instances have happened to many of us in our close friends and family network. So I think all of this has led to a state of play wherein we are all looking for, some sort of inspiration and advice and words of wisdom, so that somebody with a higher wisdom and spiritual knowledge can guide all of us. And I was also reading somewhere that ultimately our beliefs and thoughts are the ones which drive us, and that drives our actions and results. So it's very important that how we can control and manage our mind and the emerging thoughts that can lead us to control a lot of outcomes in terms of what we're trying to do. And guys, who better than Swami Mukundananda Ji, who has so graciously agreed to spare his valuable time, 5:30 in the morning, with all of us. We are so honored and privileged to have Swamiji with us. For all of you's reference, Swamiji's profile would lead into 20 minutes itself, but I'm going to do a shorter version of it in the interest of time. Swamiji is a global spiritual leader, and I'm personally very proud to have our IIT alumni. So it's really interesting to see one of our own IIT alumni getting into such a different, alternative career path. So it's really inspiring to see that. And Swamiji has traveled all around the world, and he is an authority on mind management. In fact, some of the people who are SEO or Google search techies, if you search mind management, I assure you, Swamiji's results are there on all over the Google. So he's really an authority in the truest sense on mind management. Swamiji took up after studying at IIT Delhi and IIM Calcutta, he took up sannyas at the age of 23 years. He has touched lives of millions of people through his work. He is the senior disciple of Jagat Guru Shri Kripalji Maharaj, the fifth original Jagat Guruji in the last 5,000 years. Swamiji is also a prolific writer and has authored several books to share his divine knowledge and help people lead inspired lives. His books, which some of you have already read, Spiritual Dialectics, Yoga for Body, Mind and Soul, Essence of Hinduism, Yoga for Healthy Body and Mind, and Art of Mind Management is there for all of us to read and get inspired. Swamiji has also established JKY Yoga, a non-profit organization in US which supports the cause of mind management. So with this, Swamiji, a very warm welcome to our YLC family at AIMA here. We are so honored and privileged to have you with us. A very warm welcome, Swamiji.
Namaste, Kartik, and namaste to all your participants in YLC of AIMA. It is my pleasure to join you, and thank you for inviting me. Happy to be here and discuss some very important topics with you.
Sure. So, Swamiji, what we will follow is that there are some questions which I already have from our audience members, so I'm going to take that up. But I request the audience members in the meantime to keep sharing your questions in the chat window here, and we'll take it up as the session proceeds. Swamiji, what we really want to start with is, as I was telling at the start of the session, that people, there are wide variety of people, right? Some of the people who were working before pandemic and they have lost their jobs. Many people are entrepreneurs with us. They are consultants, they are freelancers, and their business has suddenly disappeared, which has led many people to really sort of struggle between two thought processes. I mean, there's a set of people who are saying that should I just leave everything and look for completely disruptive in my life? That's the opportune time to do that. And some people are completely overwhelmed by the situation, and then they are thinking, just I should just stay low, stay put for now, and then when everything comes back to normal, I'll probably take up something. So ultimately, both these kind of people are not able to manage. They're struggling with their emotions, and they're not able to really figure out that how do they manage this sort of a uncertainty which they haven't faced. What are your thoughts on managing such kind of a uncertainty, and how do we calm ourselves during these times and not get overwhelmed by all these emotions?
Yes, Kartik, as we go through our education, the system teaches us about the laws of the external environment, how to adjust our circumstances to our best comfort and to our best benefit. So, as management students, we all learned how to manipulate market environments, finance systems, information systems, etc. But really speaking, the experience of happiness and distress is all dependent on our mind. We may be in the best of externals, but if mind is disturbed and agitated, this will elude us. It is important to understand functioning of the mind and the laws by which it operates and how to manage our own mind. Now, you have pointed out that we are going through difficult times. However, the history of humankind informs us that the previous generations have gone through even more difficult times. We had two world wars in the last century. Now, I imagine the people lying in trenches with dynamites all around, etc. So, compared to that, we have had a far easier life. I was asking somebody in the USA just last year that what is the primary characteristic of the millennial generation, because now we are growing old. So he said, Swamiji, it is entitlement. Entitlement means we have everything easy and we are entitled to so much. However, if we can find a deeper meaning and purpose in life, we then find the means to handle the negative circumstances around us. And what is that meaning and purpose? Rather than prioritizing our external comfort, we prioritize inner growth. We make it our goal in life that my objective is to be the best version of myself that I can be. And we cannot often control the external circumstances, but we can control our inner response. So if we decide that, okay, I may have reduced the bottom line of my business, but it is not as important as the fact that am I becoming a better person out of this situation. So it has been found that when people have a higher purpose before them, they truly believe that something is valuable. They are willing to undergo difficulties and hardships to achieve that. We have instances of people who are willing to sacrifice their life for a cause they truly believe in. Now, here, what I am proposing is that the cause should be our own inner growth, which we tend to marginalize in the external running. So, all through life, we focus on increasing the finances, the possessions, etc., and we completely neglect our self improvement. If people take a look at their yearly schedule, how much time did they invest in their own selves? So, creation has created a pause, not by your wanting or my wanting, but by the superior intellect of creation. A pause has been created that you were focusing on external growth. Now, remember, you have here an opportunity to focus on inner growth. And people with that perspective have found that this pandemic has turned to their advantage, where they are learning new skills, whether it is in mind management or in the profession that they have. And they are utilizing this pause which nature has provided to enrich their own lives from within. So, if we the reason why people become disturbed is the singular priority in life becomes external success. And they don't realize that inwardly they may have been bankrupt. So ultimately, if we do not know how to manage our mind, we may be the richest people in the world. We will still be unhappy. The Western philosopher John Milton, he put it so well when he said, the mind is a place of its own, and in itself can make heaven out of hell and hell out of heaven. Think about it. Everything outside may be perfect, but if our mind is agitated and disturbed, we will still be unhappy. On the other hand, if we have learned the science of mind management, we may be in the most difficult circumstances. We hear of people who are blind and yet competent and happy CEOs. We hear of people who are crippled and yet leading meaningful lives. Everybody knows of Helen Keller, who did not have two senses. She could not hear and she could not see, and yet she was a philanthropist. And when she passed away at the age of 84, she said, life has been so beautiful. I have enjoyed every moment of it. So let us utilize the negative circumstances to change priorities. And we should not worry that there is chaos. This world is completely under the control of the superior intellect. And the so called chaos that we are seeing is also part of a divine plan. And that divine plan is to help bring all of us to the state of ultimate perfection. So, from our point of view, things may be going wrong. But from the point of view of creation, this is all helping us in our journey to reach that ultimate point. So, if we cannot do, there is no need to jump out of the boat. Sometimes, when the going gets difficult, it is a safer route to cut your losses, to play it safe, to hide low until the situation changes, and then you get your chance again. So rather than lose faith, we should enhance our resources for the opportunity that we will get at the end of this tunnel when we can see the light again.
Right. And Swami, many people through multiple forums, they talk about that even this, and we were just joking about it at the start, that this whole schedule, like, we've been trained and groomed, as you were also talking about, to get up in the morning, have breakfast, go to work, come back, right? That's been somehow ingrained societally into our, culture and tradition. Now, not being able to do that, many people are just working from home, and the lines between personal space and workspace is getting so blurred, and people are sometimes getting cognitively very confused that, what am I doing? Am I working? Am I at home? All these kind of blurry lines are making it very difficult for us to to focus on either of the two. I know I have heard so many horror stories where people are not able to even do work properly and manage their personal life. So how can people manage this complete change in their work life and personal life due to the current situation?
Uh, okay, Karthik, we all have a tendency to want to stay in our comfort zone. There is this bodily nature of homeostasis. The
Mhm.
body wants to stay in a temperature between 98.4 and 98.6. So, similarly, we want our mind also to stay within our comfort zone. But all progress happens outside the comfort zone. And that is why nature deliberately throws us beyond what we are habituated to be in. There's an interesting question in the Chandogya Upanishad. Why does the creation allow earthquakes, hurricanes, cyclones, etc. to happen? Is there a defect in the design? But on one hand, we see there's such perfection in every aspect of creation, from the tiniest atom to the biggest galaxies. So, for creation to have a design where there were no such disturbances would be the smallest of things. A little tweaking would have enabled it. That means the grand scheme of things has deliberately fitted these natural calamities in it. And why? The answer given is that we are deliberately pushed out of our comfort zone to force us to enhance our wisdom, our physical abilities, our mental, intellectual, emotional abilities, our spiritual wisdom to handle the changed situation. And that is what leads to growth. So we may have been in a rut and found it to become comfortable for us. Now things have changed differently for everyone. But if we just ponder and think, a few adjustments can still make us comfortable from within. Like, for example, even in your home, you can create your isolated space where the rest of the family members don't disturb. You can create some rules at home. So, a few little bit of tweaking like this can make it very easy to adjust to this changed situation. I personally, when I started preaching like this, and then the prachar went further and further, and then I started coming to USA, and to the point where until last year, I was traveling to about 80 cities, and within a city, I'd be traveling from home to home to home.
Mhm.
So I joke to people that my suitcase goes to 150 homes every year.
Wow.
Now, in every home, there's a different situation. There's a different room, different kind of bedroom, different kind of table to study in. Initially, it was very disconcerting for a few years. But then, rather than giving up, with the positive attitude, with the attitude that we will rise to the situation, we do a little mental tweak. And after that, there is no problem at all.
Right.
So there is one kind of peace where we need the externals to be as we want. And there is another kind of peace where we have handled our internals. I will just take 2 minutes to share a story that I find very interesting. One yogi had renounced the world and he had gone up the Himalayas to meditate. He used to live in a little hut in a hermitage there. Now, in his first year there, when the monsoon came, the creatures of nature started making merry. The frogs started croaking, tar, 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 pit, 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 wah, 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 and the crickets were making sound. And this our yogi was sitting there and getting terribly disturbed. So he thought that don't these frogs know that I am a yogi and I am sitting here in meditation?
Mhm.
He opened his window, poked his head out, and screamed, "Quiet!" Because he was an elevated yogi, Even the creatures listened, and suddenly there was complete silence. So he sat back in meditation. Now the environment is favorable.
Mhm.
However, a new kind of disturbance began. And this was coming from within him. His own voice of conscience was saying, what I did, was it correct? These creatures were acting according to their nature. Maybe God is as pleased by their sounds as he is pleased by my meditation.
Right.
This sound from within became uncontrollable, and he said, I have to do something about it. So again, he poked his head out of the window and he indicated with his hand, go on. They began their tar tar tar, pit pit pit, gua gua gua, and he sat down in meditation. But this time he had a different kind of peace, a peace that was coming from within by making friends with the external circumstances that were not within his control. So, this is the art of positive thinking. Change the circumstances you can,
Right.
make friends with the circumstances that you cannot change, and have the wisdom to know the difference between the two.
Right. And Swamiji, it's very interesting since you mentioned on the external factors. Many times, when I talk to people, and it happens probably to all of us, the lesser mortals, that people tend to watch news and content around, oh, how the corona cases are going up or down, and every day based upon these numbers, they are actually they begin their day on a positive or a bad mood depending upon these external factors. Then, like, is vaccine coming or not coming? So I've actually seen people's their mood and their behavior day to day changing depending upon this external news, which is absolutely speculation based. Sometimes you don't even have control over it. How do you remain calm and balanced and not just act and react to some of these external news and factors, like you said, are beyond our control?
Well, Karthik, we are all lesser mortals. I'm probably the least, but nevertheless, I'm doing my duty to answer your question. Uh, this is, I think, a very, very relevant question in modern times because the media is bombarding us from all sides, and it is bombarding us more with negativity than with positivity because their perspective is how to increase their TRP.
Right.
So, as the saying goes, that if a dog bites man, it is not news, but if a man bites dog, it is news. So, if everything is going well, that is not news, but if things are going wrong, it's news.
Right.
So, in this situation of external negativity, we must be careful that our we have to keep our thoughts positive. If our thoughts become negative, then we will get affected in our happiness, in our quality of life, and everything, even our health. That is why the Vedic scriptures say that beware of kusang.
Hmm.
What is kusang? Negative association. Don't associate too much with a person who is always harping on the bad things in life. One person, he used to carpool
Mhm.
from Noida to Gurgaon for his work.
Mhm.
And one of the people in that carpool was always talking about how bad the company was, the bosses was, the prime minister was, the chief minister was. And the consequence was that by the time he would reach to office, this person would be filled with pessimism. And then he realized that he's listening to the voice of negativity. So, for his own sanity, for his own health, he decided he needs to stop carpooling and go by himself. That is our wisdom. If we find that the media is forcing us with bombarding us with negative thoughts, then we should choose that this is not good for me. So you have said that people get worried when they see that the corona cases are increasing or the situation is deteriorating. I think we must keep this policy that to be effective in our life, We focus on solutions and not on problems. Problems are there on all sides. If we keep on rotating the problem in our mind, it will not help. Positive thinkers are those who are solution oriented. If there is something I can do about it, let me do. But there is no point just bearing the problem within. That is why just reading how the situation is not going to help. You can get the amount of news you want in just a few minutes every day. And a sadhu like me, I read the newspaper for 5 minutes once a week, and I find that's good enough.
Right. And in fact, we have somebody asking this question as well, and I can relate to that question that many of these wisdom preaching which you are sharing with us almost requires us to have sort of a discipline in our mind, right? And it's very hard to implement it in practice when you are constantly reaching out to your phone and devices for different, like I have decided that I'll not look at corona numbers, right? But I am okay to look at WhatsApp. And when I see WhatsApp, one thing leads to some other link, and then I finally go to that data set and start looking at it. So how do we start the disciplining of our mind for somebody who doesn't know how to practice meditation as a layman, as a beginner? How can we start the process of disciplining our mind?
So, discipline is a very, very important and helpful virtue to develop. Now, in this modern age, what happens is that people are working on the project they have to prepare for their boss. But the project is not interesting. And the mind, our prefrontal cortex, has got an inherent bias for stimulation because stimulation is entertaining. So the mind gives a proposal, can we just check WhatsApp? It will create a diversion. Now, what happens is that we give into it. So, WhatsApp, net surfing, social media, and the nature of the mind towards stimulation goes on increasing and increasing. So, lack of discipline in one area reflects in all areas in our life. And if we start countering that, which means don't give in to the impulses of the mind. Like, for example, when as children, when we had to study, the mind didn't want it, but we forced it to. So, in the same way, the mind says, okay, can I divert myself? Now, when you exert, no, I will not divert myself. You deny the mind. This mind is like a spoiled child. Every time you deny the mind, you force it to do what is necessary, or you desist from doing what is not necessary but pleasurable. The mind gets trained. And the mind is so trainable that you just start exercising discipline for 1 week. And within 1 week, you will say, my God, this virtue of willpower, of self restraint, I have done 100% growth in it. So, like the person asking the question has said, it is a priority. If we can realize its value and we can train ourselves, we will find that it will help us in all aspects. We will become better eaters, better exercisers, we'll have better control over our speech, we'll be more focused in our work. All aspects of our existence will get enriched by enhancing our virtue of discipline.
Right. And I think that's a very powerful thought that we can all probably start with a goal based training of mind. And I'm sure if we deny, like Swamiji is saying, for once or twice, we'll start to see that mind is actually trainable, but we never gave it a chance. So that's a great thought, Swamiji. We've got one more question, and this is also an interesting one. So, we've all been uh, the kind of grooming we have had, average middle class family in India, that if you do the right thing, truth, kindness are the good virtues. If you do it, then everything will be fine. But at the same time, then we see a lot of people who are unkind and who are not so truthful. They get along well in life as well, and sometimes doing much better than us. And looking at them, one starts to introspect and wonder that whether all these stories which over the years I've been told by society and my parents, does it really make sense? And one starts to get disillusioned. That is that theory of honesty, good virtues is really there, or am I a square peg in a round hole? So what are your thoughts on that, Swami?
That is a very philosophic question, and it's something that many people ponder about. And there are other versions of it. Why are bad things happening to good people? Why are good things happening to bad people? Well, see, all the religious traditions of the world, they all have talked about the law of karma in different ways. As you sow, that you shall reap. Karma pradhana, vishwakari rakha, etc. It's the simple law of action and reaction. So I strongly believe in it that this amazing creation is not without rules. In fact, that was my problem with science in IIT. We were being taught thousands of laws of the external world. And the question before me was that if this whole creation just got created by a big bang, then why are there laws at all? If there are laws, there must be a superior intellect behind it. So the same superior intellect has got the laws of life. And those laws are that whatever you do bears consequences. If we are nice to others, if we are kind and helpful, it does result in good karmas. On the other hand, if we hurt others, that will come back to us in some way or the other. But at the same time, success just doesn't depend on one criteria, whether you are nice and good. Success requires multiple ingredients: proficiency in your work, ability for interpersonal harmony, perseverance and grit within yourself, ability to manage your own mind, as we have discussed. So we cannot reach some simplistic conclusions that, look, this person is a good man and he failed, and this person is a bad man and he succeeded, because we don't know their whole story.
Right.
So we should not jump to conclusions. We should focus on both things. Be good and do good. At the same time, remember that whatever ingredients are required for success, you will need to develop them and utilize them to reach that ultimate goal.
Right. We've got a very interesting question, Swamiji, by one of our audience members. And you know what they are sharing is that because of this COVID situation, at workplace, the person got transferred to a different state. And now they had to be away from their family. And with this current COVID situation, it's always on the back of their mind. And obviously, partly also guilt ridden that, in this critical time, they're away from their family, and there's always a dilemma in terms of being able to focus on work and at the same time feeling that guilt of being away from the family and not being able to support them immediately if something happens. So how does one come to terms with this kind of a quandary and maintain balance of mind?
A lot of difficult situations have been created. There is no denying that. I mean, people are going through all kinds of hardships. There are cases of relatives who pass away with corona in the hospital, and then the relatives don't even get to see the body. It is just disposed. So a lot of things are disconcerting in the present times. I would like to say that reframe this. Think of people who went through even more difficult times. I mean, ultimately, today, the kind of comfort and luxury we get was not available even to the royalty 300 years ago. We sit in air conditioned and we have whatever food we want on the table. So, when things go difficult, what we can do is we reframe that situation from a different perspective. And then we will realize that it is not as bad as we were thinking. There are people who are undergoing even greater hardships. Now we know what happened when the lockdown was imposed. So many poor people even walked all the way back to their villages. We are so much better than them. So that doesn't change our circumstances, but it enables us to change our mood and to become more positive. So we have to keep this in mind that sometimes the circumstances are not in our control. And at that time, what is required is the inner strength not to give up, but to keep persevering with this faith that there is somebody above who's watching and who's looking out, and that this is also going to pass. This situation will pass. After the day comes the night, and after the night comes the day. During the Spanish flu, 50 million people died worldwide. That was so much worse than the present pandemic. But then, in the space of 2 years, it was all wiped away and the world went back to normal. So, we must keep our inner strength. That is our insurance against all difficulties. You have to be stronger than the obstacle. There is no other means.
Right. In fact, Swamiji, a lot of people are also sometimes using the current situation to justify to their mind that if they are not able to deliver results, like imagine somebody who's working in a corporate, right? I've seen this example millions of times that, oh, I'm not able to do this because it's corona. So it's also becoming like an excuse by many people that I'm not able to do a certain situation because obviously the situation is bad, so it's not even worth trying hard because it's hard to get results right now, and everybody would understand. So how do we fight that complacency and the fact that we don't even want to try harder because we know that probably because of the current situation results will not come? So how do we train our mind from that perspective?
Yes, about 2 months after the lockdown, a huge public sector undertaking. My team received an email from them that they want a special session with Swamiji. And their proposal was that they are going through difficult times and they want some suggestions on how to cope with it. So we had that meeting. It turned out to be rather than a talk to all their management, their board members were sitting on the table and they were directly zooming with me.
Mhm.
So I gave them so many positive suggestions on what they could do. And they had the negative mindset.
Mhm.
And there was, Swamiji, that is all right, but how is it possible for us? We are in such great difficulty. So you are very right that people sometimes make it an excuse. Children play with those toy cars that are wound, and then the car starts moving. So the car comes and hits some barrier. And I saw this car, when it would hit a barrier, it would go a little back, it would turn around and then start moving in the next direction. And when it would hit another barrier, again, it would go back, turn around, and move in a third direction. That is the sign of somebody who is on the path to success. Losers search for excuses, and winners always search for different ways for doing the same thing. This example is very famous of Thomas Edison. When he was inventing his electric bulb, he failed again and again and again. And when he failed for the 3,999th time, a journalist asked him that, Mr. Edison, are you not disappointed that you have failed so many times? So he said, young man, let me teach you a lesson that will help you all your life. I have not failed 3,999 times. I have discovered 3,999 ways how this cannot be done. And it was on the next attempt that he made it actually. So the difference between those who succeed in life and those who fail in life is exactly this. The failures, they are unsuccessful 5 times and they give up. And the successes also failed 10 times, but they persisted and accomplished in the 11th time. So rather than make excuses, we should search for different ways for doing the same thing.
Right. And Swamiji, one of the things which many people have found very uncomfortable in the current situation is not being able to travel, right? I mean, as human beings, we are all tuned towards exploring, seeking out adventure, just change of scenery, for lack of a better word, right? And we have also seen some situations in recent past where people have just done revenge travel, right? That's the word they're calling it right now. That I don't care about what happens to me. I just want to get out of my home, right? So these kind of funny situations have arisen. So how can people almost resist that urge of revenge travel just for the sake of it, because the situation is still not very safe, but at the same time they need to keep themselves calm. I've seen so many people, at least in the West, in US, some of my friends, they just go to airport just to roam around and get that feel of being in taking a flight, but they don't even take a flight for sure. But how do we manage that sort of uneasiness that, oh, I haven't taken I know so many people who are like jet setters, right? And they say, oh, I haven't even taken a flight in last 6 months, it's very uncomfortable for me. So how do we handle that bit of travel anxiety?
That's right. Now, staying in their homes has definitely been uncomfortable. Most uncomfortable for the children who love to go out and play, and now they are homeschooling and this attending school from their homes in USA particularly. And then for the teenagers, they are not able to go for their teenage parties, etc. And many of them, they are attending classes again from home. So similarly, those who were the jet setters who were traveling around, it was entertaining, it was giving pleasure, and suddenly it has all been denied. It is no doubt a difficult situation. But again, the situation can be turned to our advantage, where we can discover a different kind of travel, a kind of travel that we have ignored so far, and that is a journey into ourselves. And when we undertake that inner journey, we will discover that that is the most fulfilling. We may search for gold and finances on the outside, but the maximum gold has been mined from within our own hearts by people who have bothered to spend time to go on their inner journey, to discover their true selves, to ponder over the bigger questions in life, to unearth the tools for mind management, and then to utilize them. So, again, it's just a question of making peace with the externals. The Ishopanishad says, Isha Vasamidam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatyan Jagat. Look, this whole world is divine. It's the veritable form of God. It's like the spider takes out the web from itself. The spider does not purchase thread from any shop. It creates a web by taking it out from itself and then withdraws it back into itself when it's no longer necessary. So, similarly, this creation has manifested from one perfect source. So, creation in itself is also perfect. Why it is seeming so imperfect to us is because of the imperfection within us. That this is the Vedic perspective. Chittameva hi sansaras. There's an external world and there is an inner world. Now, it's not that you ignore the external world, but the problem is we have ignored the internal world. So, utilize the situation to bring things in balance in your life. And if you cannot travel on the outside, undertake the inner journey, and I assure you, you will find it far more thrilling, fulfilling than the external travels.
Right. Swami, I have like one personal question of mine, which I've been sort of, deliberating on with many of my friends as well. That, human beings in general have had this sort of a limitless, concept of abundance, that anything is possible. I can grow, earn more, expand more. And, that abundance mindset is typically there, which has led us to the growth of our civilization, right? But with COVID, what I've seen many people developing this limiting mindset that, oh, I need to cut my expenses. I can go to my hometown. I can live on a shoestring budget. So I also don't need too much income. So that has led to a very limiting mindset that it's okay for me to be now in a cocoon, save everything, don't focus too much. And then many people have told me they have moved to their hometown. They think I'll probably never come back to a NCR or a Mumbai, because here I don't need so much money to stay here. I can work from home from my hometown, and I don't need to be in this rat race. I'll probably not want to earn more. Do you think as a society that's a good belief to? I know on one side is good, but do you think, as a societal growth perspective, is it a good mindset to develop if everyone starts thinking like that?
Okay, Karthik, just before I get into your question, uh, naturally, this pandemic has uh, helped develop humility in people because scientists have realized that we are unable to handle this little creation, the little entity, the COVID 19. So we have limitations as human beings. And that sense of humility on the limits of our power and ability is helpful in developing reverence, in developing uh, more positivity towards our life, etc. But now, alongside with that, is the point you have made that we have realized we can make do with very little, and we have the option to be minimalists.
Mm.
So did we really need such a big house, and did we need some people three houses, etc.? So life can be really very simple.
Right.
So your question is that if we embrace this kind of minimalism and simplicity, is it good? Is it beneficial for the world? This is also a question that people ask spiritualists like myself. That, Swamiji, if we become adherents to what you're teaching, will it reduce the progress of the world?
Right.
Will it impede economic development?
Mhm.
So, actually, the scriptures, they answer this very beautifully. Santoshastrishu kartavyah swadare bhojane dhane trishu naiva cha kartavyah swadhyaye japadanayo. Contentment is a beautiful virtue in so many things. In your external situations, in your spouse, in the food that you eat. If you are contented, you will not be miserable. You not always be comparing, keeping up with the Joneses. On the other hand, in the good things in life, never be contented. In who you are as a person, always think, I still have a long way to go. In what you have done, the productive work that has made a difference to this world, never think, I have now reached my limit. Always think, there's so much more I could do. In the good you do to people, in the way you serve them, always think that there is what I have done is a drop in the ocean. So it will change our perspective. Earlier, the perspective to work was it is all for my comfort and for my enhancement. Now, take a different look at work. Is this work making a difference to the world? If it is, then I can find meaning and purpose in that. And I should enhance my desire. I should inspire myself in that direction to lead the most effective life that I can. So it is said that some people view life as an ice cream. You enjoy it before it melts.
Mhm.
And some people view life as a candle. Give out as much light as you can before you melt. When we develop that attitude, that I have abilities and talents. Let me use them all. Why not? Then you will find a deeper inspiration in the work that you do.
Right. Swamiji, one person is asking that, it's all very good to understand, but from a practical perspective, he's asking that when we are constantly under fear psychosis all around us, I have seen situations where people just, when they start to cough, they feel, oh, I've got COVID, and something bad is going to happen to me. So you're in that level of fear psychosis. They're asking for some tips that how they can just maintain their cool and not get bothered by these kind of situations.
So, Kartik, that is very practical question. All good ideas are a dime a dozen, but they are not worth a broken nickel until they are implemented.
Right.
And sometimes people feel that, all this advice is theoretical, but when I'm in that situation, what is the handle with which I can implement it?
They want the cheat sheet.
Right. So that is why actually my last book got released in September, the Science of Mind Management, where I gave practical tools. And the foremost tool is this, that during your day, you take out a little time for yourself. So in that little time which you take out, let's say an hour a day, you shut out your externals and you focus on managing your mind. So if we wish to improve, we have to be willing to dedicate some time and resources to it. If you want to improve your health, you take out time for it. If you want to improve your business, you give more time to it. If you want to have better family life, you give them quality time. Similarly, if we wish to develop better attitudes, then what do? We dedicate some time to this. That is why it is recommended. Vivikta Sevi Lagvasi, the Bhagavad Gita says, that for some time, every day, go into isolation. So it doesn't say go into the Himalayas. Mm-hmm. Every day, you go into the isolation where you block out the social media and the internet, etc. And in this 1 hour, your only focus should be on enriching your own mind with wonderful attitudes, your own intellect with divine wisdom and empowering beliefs. That will help us slowly, as we start tending to the garden of our mind. We will realize a little known secret of this world, that by changing our internals, we can actually change the externals, our circumstances as well. And by changing our thoughts, we can attract good circumstances to our life. This is the secret that extremely successful people in any field share. How they changed the way they think, and then circumstances started aligning to provide them with the opportunities to do good, to be good, and to feel good. So we must prioritize a little bit of time in our life to learn the science of mind management.
Right. And in fact, I'll in couple of minutes from now, I'll also announce the 3 winners who got Swamiji's this author signed book. But before that, Swamiji, last question that you've talked about how we need to focus more on inner growth, spending time with ourselves, and look inwards, travel inwards. Many people also tell me that it's very scary and overwhelming sometimes when you start to spend time with your own self alone. It's very, very scary for many people, right? Because all these thoughts overwhelm you, and many people who just start meditation, they share this experience that it's very difficult for them because these are all these noises in their head which come, right? And it's very difficult for them to actually have a inner looking conversation with our own self, because you always have these voices in your heads which will try to tell you that, okay, which will try to deviate you from the path of having a more deeper inner conversation. At the superficial level, it will try to tell you that, okay, everything is fine, we've already discussed and you got the answers. But how do you break that layer and actually get into a much deeper conversation with your own self and that true inner journey? How can one really undertake that?
Okay, so Karthik, we all have had the experience that we started cleaning our room
Hmm.
thinking it is so dirty and messy. And then while cleaning, after a few minutes, we felt that this is overwhelming. It is worse than before, because everything was out of the closet, out of the suitcase, etc. But then we did not give up. We stuck to it. And slowly the order started increasing until everything was properly taken care of. So, similarly, when we start working on our inner self, it may sometimes seem overwhelming. Oh my God, I have now come in touch with all these defects that I have. At that time, some people may jump off, but it is to our best interest that these issues needed to be addressed. So we must stick on, and the end will come in sight. So we need to understand a little bit of technology here. Inner technology, there is the mind and there is the intellect. The problem creator is the mind, which is throwing up emotions, negativity, feelings, ideas, mood off, etc. This is all at the level of the mind, which is like a spoiled child. And then beyond the mind is the intellect. The intellect is the analytical ability that realizes that negative thoughts are not good for me. So the intellect is able to think long term. The intellect decides that, look, I need to keep my weight in check and I should not just keep on piling the calories. But the mind wants immediate gratification. The mind says, Rasgulla will give me pleasure right now. Forget about the long term. I want pleasure right now. Now, there is this fight that goes on between the mind and the intellect. Now, most people don't even realize that they are not the mind. And that is why this, oh my God, I'm thinking like that. Oh my God, I've got this, I've got that. But if you do a little bit of mind management, you will be able to see your mind as different from yourself. You say, Acha, my mind is creating mischief. I will not listen to it. This will give you the freedom that you need. So the first step here is to empower our intellect with wisdom rather than just doing it on ourselves, that okay, I have to analyze, then we will get overwhelmed. Instead of that, utilize good wisdom to empower your intellect. And then with the intellect, you start controlling the mind. This emotion is beneficial, this is not. So Bhagavad Gita calls it Buddhi Yoga. See, even a little child knows how to do it all the year long. The child is not studying. Parents come to me, Swamiji, bacche ko kuch samjhao. He is not studying. So I say, Beta, why are you not studying? Uncle, my mind does not like to study. Big problem. Mind doesn't want to study. But the same child, when he or she goes for the exam, the child is there for 2 hours in the examination hall and she has controlled her mind completely. Now there is no badmashi of the mind. The mind is in focus and the person is answering. How did this change come about? Because the intellect decided that now if the mind goes around the place, I will lose the whole year. So the moment the intellect brought the right knowledge into it, it controlled the mind. This is a simple sample of Buddhi Yoga. If that intellect had kept good knowledge in it all the year round, that child could have become a national level scholar with that level of performance and focus. So we all utilize our intellect to control the mind throughout the day. When people go to office, they don't like working there. Some people say, Aaj to maja aa gaya. One person came to me, Swamiji, aaj to maja aa gaya. Many years ago. I said, what happened? President mar gaya. I said, what is there to be happy about in this? No, Swamiji, I don't care whether he lives or dies, but I have got chutti from work. So the work is such a burden on the mind. And yet, an ordinary person is controlling the mind and working because the intellect has realized this is necessary. I need to do it. I'm just giving simple examples from our everyday life of Buddhi Yoga, controlling the mind with our intellect. That the potential for it is immense. If we can empower our intellect with divine wisdom, we can slowly train the mind. And this mind can be our worst enemy, but it can also be our best friend. So it's a journey that we must undertake for our own benefit and for doing the best work that we can.
Right. And in fact, Swami, the questions are pouring in and in, but we are now almost up on time. So I'm going to request everyone. Swamiji has got this book, The Science of Mind Management, and he has been kind enough to have three winners. Many of you have participated in this competition where you submitted your entries. Swamiji has selected three winners in that. So I'm going to announce the name of those three winners. You will get signed copy by Swamiji. Rest of you who want to get to know more about the book and Swamiji's approach, I'm sure you've all found it very useful. We'll share those details with all of you who are interested as well. But the names of the winners are Vivek Puri, Vaijan Pandey, and Ravi Basi. So congrats, Vivek, Vaijan, and Raviji. And Swamiji's signed copy will read very soon. And Swamiji's blessing as well is with all of us. We are so we feel so humbled and privileged. Swamiji, all the people are sending me messages that they now feel that, and it's also the right time of the day here towards the evening, because that's when most of the people, they have spent their whole day fighting negativity and whatnot. So they're all going back home now post work, in a more positive frame of mind. So thank you so much, Swamiji, for sharing such good vibes and positive energy with all of us. And we can all feel, at least virtually, your blessings and your presence with us.
Thank you very much, Kartik. It was a pleasure speaking with you and through you to all the members of your association. It was a pleasure connecting with you today.
Thank you, Swami. Pranam. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Have a lovely evening ahead. Thank you.